Hello and welcome back to the Opposites Abroad podcast, a podcast covering all things travel. Charlie Bosco here. TT, Traveller Tattooed on Instagram, is down in Denver as ever. And this should be a pretty easy podcast for you because we are talking about your hometown. It's Denver, the capital of the West, can we call it?
Yes. Yeah, don't say the Midwest. I hate that. It's the West.
What is it? The biggest city in the middle of America, I guess we could call it?
I don't know. I assume so. Probably the best.
Yeah, for sure the best.
Yes.
Maybe the biggest city in the west of America that isn't on the coast. How's that for a catchy title?
So before we started, I was looking at my phone for a second, and you were saying something about you're banging away before we started.
Yeah, that was a private conversation.
Well, you should say that you're a drummer.
We talked about it last time. No, I was playing my drums, and I got an alert on my phone saying podcast recording coming up in 10 minutes. I thought, oh my god, I've forgotten all about that. So my ears are ringing, my hands are kind of a little bit blistered, and my forearms are tingling a bit from drumming. But yeah, banging away and then jumping on the podcast is probably not as interesting as it may initially sound.
Were you playing Rocky Mountain High by John Denver?
Well, of course, yeah, in preparation.
Yeah, that's good.
No, and I suddenly went, oh yeah, we're talking about Denver today, and I had to bail on the drums to come and see you. But it was worth giving up some banging to hear all about Denver. And
so Denver. So I think we can do another one sometime in maybe Colorado proper, and focus this one just on Denver, the capital of Colorado. And I've lived here since I was one in the mid 70s. My parents moved here when I was a baby, so I pretty much consider myself a native. And then I had a great grandfather who was a minister locally too at one point in the area. So I've got some ties here. When I was a kid, I had a great aunt who lived in a log cabin up in the mountains, and it was kind of a different era. So I'm happy to talk about Denver, and I'm sure, as always, I'm going to say some controversial opinions on Denver because I have a lot of love for my hometown, and there's a lot of things I don't love about Denver anymore that I'll talk about too.
yeah, but I remember someone saying to me, when you truly love something, you see its flaws, and that's probably true of all of us that love a certain place. And I got to say, I've been to Denver 5 times maybe, and spent a reasonable amount of time there with you, and I think it's an amazing city, and it's worthy of its own podcast. And it's so different from so many places in the US that I think it's a really special place, and you're very lucky to live there. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Well, things are always more fun with me, I think. But
yeah,
what being since you live in our 51st state, what do you think about Denver that is so much more interesting than other U.S. cities?
Well, I mean, as you say, I think if you lived in Bismarck, North Dakota, it would still be the most incredible place in the world by your presence. But if we take you out of it, I think Denver is a great size, so it's not crazy big. I mean, the suburbs now are pretty big, but it's not crazy huge like LA, but it's big enough that you get all the great concerts. I mean, sometimes I look at who's playing Denver and I think my concert budget would need to be a lot higher if I lived in Denver. There's so many bands. You've got sports teams for every major sport in the US, which is quite unique. Not many places have the big 4 US sports, which is hockey, basketball, football, baseball, plus an MLS team. It's a real sports town. It's so close to the mountains, but you can drive the other way and be in the plains. It's you have an amazing climate, more sunshine than LA. I just think it's a really appealing place. Whatever you're into, whether it's outdoor sports, music, culture, sports, sunshine. Who isn't into sunshine? I just think it's a really great place. Now, every time I've been there, I've really thought, if I was to live in one of the traditional 50 states instead of the 51st, then I would certainly consider living somewhere near Denver. I think it's a great city.
Yeah, you actually make me like it more just from that little speech. Uh, so, a few things on what you said. The one of the things that is so nice about Denver, and I remember my dad telling me this when I was a kid, and you'll hear me say that a lot when I'm just in the podcast because it's all this stuff my dad kind of taught me. But he said one of the best things about Denver is that we have 4 seasons.
Yeah,
And we
just going
legitimately have 4 seasons.
and just going back to LA, the lack of seasons. Much as you think, oh, it'd be great that it's sunny every day, it would kill me. I love the weather changing, and yeah, I love the seasons. And you do get 4 seasons, hey?
We do get 4 seasons, and they're not terrible. Like, our summers are hot, but they're not miserably hot because it's dry here.
It's pretty hot.
It's pretty hot, but it's not like being in Mississippi
Yeah.
or being in Vegas or.
It's dry as well, hey. I mean, I feel like
It is. It's dry.
I feel like I
Yeah.
get sunburned just by looking at the outside from a hotel room in Denver. It's so bone dry, hey.
Yeah, it is. It is dry, and then our falls are absolutely beautiful up in the mountains with the leaves changing. Spring is when we have our usually our big snowstorms. But one of the cool things about our winters is, yeah, we get snow, and we do get some blizzards, but we don't get like ice storms and the like horrible biting cold for months like you'd get in Chicago or New York or some of those places. Like, it's actually, like you said, it's sunny, so we'll get a blizzard or we'll get a big snowstorm, and then the next day it's starting to melt, and it's always sunny here. And the seasons are nice because it's nice being able to, like, okay, now I'm gonna break out my shorts for the summer, and now I'm gonna break out my stuff for fall, and it's I think that's fun. That's one of the things that as much as I like tropical places, I think if I lived in a place like, let's say, Thailand, it's like there's a hot season and then there's a hot wet season, and that's like it. And I think that would get old for me.
Yeah, I remember speaking to a guy who lived in Houston, and he said, I was just longing for some different weather. I was just desperate for it not to be sunny and a bit humid. And no, Denver definitely has you covered off there. And of course, it's surrounded. We managed to talk about mountains because that's my passion, but it's surrounded by some of the best and highest ski resorts in the whole of the world. Really, the some of the highest rated. I mean, Vail Resorts. Actually, if you want to go on YouTube and investigate what Vail Resorts has done to the ski industry, it's not been pretty. But Vail and Breckenridge and all the famous and Aspen, the famous Colorado resorts, they are amazing, hey?
Yeah, they are. And they're fun in the summer too. There's a lot of stuff, and I think we can get that into a Colorado episode and go through kind of some of the mountain towns and stuff, because there's Boulder and Estes Park, and there's Colorado Springs, and there's a lot of cool stuff around here. You mentioned sporting teams. It is a big sporting town. The only thing I think we're really lacking right now is a WNBA team, which I would like us to have. But with all the sport team, regardless of what anybody says, we're a Bronco town. It's Broncos, and then there's some other sports, but anybody who's really lived here or grown up here, it's Bronco town. The Nuggets, of course, have been really great lately, and they're older. Now, for me personally, I tend to like the teams that were here when I was a kid, and when I was a kid, it was the Broncos and the Nuggets. We didn't have baseball, we didn't have soccer, so I grew up, watching with my dad and my friends and going to those games. So those other teams came later, and they're just not quite as exciting for me because I just don't have the history. But our old teams, the Broncos, I think, came here in 1962. The Nuggets were part of the ABA before the NBA even started. So we've been a sport town when Denver was not even that big of a city.
Yeah, and it was super interesting, actually. In my career as a broadcaster, I spent a few days shadowing the head of media or head of broadcasting, head of summing at Colorado Rapids, which is the Major League Soccer team. And he was super interesting. He was English as well. And he said to me, "Who's your team in England?" I said, I guess Blackburn. Blackburn was my team growing up. And he goes, "Why do you go to Blackburn games?" And I said, "Because Blackburn are playing." And he goes, "So what happens at the game?" I said, "Well, you go and the game starts." And I didn't really know what he meant. And he goes, "Yeah, so that wouldn't fly in America, and especially not in Denver." and he said, basically in America, sport is entertainment first and sport second. So he said people will say to him, "What's going on at the weekend?" And he'll say, "Oh, Real Salt Lake are here, or New York Red Bulls playing, or whatever." And people will go, "Yeah, but if I go to the baseball, I get a free T-shirt, or if I go to the hockey, they've got fireworks at halftime, or whatever it is." And he just said that idea that you just go to the game because the game's on does not really exist in America, and especially in Denver, Colorado Rapids every weekend are competing with every other team playing in Denver, which in Europe is crazy. If you're a Blackburn fan, you don't think, "Oh, maybe I'll go and watch ice hockey instead." You just go to the game. And so it's a different thing. But he also said, when the Broncos are playing, just forget it. You're only getting the people that couldn't get Broncos tickets.
Yeah, it's a weird deal, and some of it actually kind of annoys me because I've been a fan for so long. And even a couple years ago, you could go to the Nuggets games for $15, $20. You'd go, they'd be half empty, real fans there screaming and yelling, everyone decked out in Nugget stuff. And then we win a championship, and now you can't get tickets. And I've been a couple times this year, and you go, and hardly anyone's wearing Nugget stuff. They're like all like they got it from their job, or they're just impressing somebody, or it's for social media, and they're not true real fans. And I think that's kind of a microcosm of Denver in a whole, that it's kind of been taken over by a lot of people from outside that I don't know really appreciate or share the same values that the people that are natives, especially people that are natives my age, have. Denver's got, when I moved to Denver as a kid, it was about 1 million people in the whole metro area. Now it's about 3 million in the same amount of land.
That's incredible. In half a century. I'm sorry,
in half a century.
You are almost half a century old, but it's trebled in size.
It's trebled in size. They're building condos everywhere. It's still growing like crazy. So traffic's terrible, and then people just aren't as nice. I mean, Denver, and you'll laugh when I say this, and I've said this before, but the closest place I've been that reminds me of Denver when I was a kid is Calgary. Calgary really reminds me of Denver as a kid, and you go to Denver now, and it's like people drive like maniacs, and the light turns green, and whoever's behind you starts honking at you, and there's homeless people everywhere, and all that stuff that comes with the big city. Unfortunately, Denver has now, and I not to sound too much like an old curmudgeon, but I miss a lot of the old Denver when it wasn't like that, and people were friendlier and nicer, and we didn't have crime, and it was different back then, if that makes sense. So I would encourage people to visit, but please don't move here. Like we have enough people, and you probably can't afford a house anyways because everything's gotten so unbelievably expensive.
Well, I guess the problem is, particularly in the last 20 years, people have realized, hold on, this place is sunny all the time. It's got 4 seasons. I can go to every...
In the mountains.
Yeah, I can go to every sport. I can ski at the weekend. I can hike. I can mountain bike. It's basically, if you think of anything you're into, whether it's culture, outdoor sports, mainstream sports, music, Denver has it. And it's got a nice climate. And until recently, it was quite affordable.
Yeah, 25 years ago, you could buy a really nice house in Denver. Not like a massive house, but a nice house for $150,000, $175,000 all day long. Even in places that are more central to Denver. Now, those same houses are $600,000-$700,000, in which, I mean, inflation's going crazy right now, but that's way more than they should be.
Yeah. So, okay. So the first thing to say about Denver is it's changed an awful lot.
It's changed an awful lot. It's an expensive place, and I travel a lot, and I'll be with people, and they'll be like, "Man, this restaurant's expensive," and I'm like, "This is about what it costs in Denver." And then when I go someplace, like let's say I go back south, and I'm in North Carolina, I'm like, I can't believe how cheap it is. Or I go to a grocery store in North Carolina, and the food is a third cheaper. Like it's just really expensive here. So I think there's a lot of really great things about Denver, but if you're an up and comer in life, or you're just getting out of college, or you're trying to get established, or you're retiring and you're looking for a place to go, Denver's probably not the best. If you're a young professional and you're in the height of your spending power, then Denver's probably a lot more palatable and someplace to look at, because it really does give an awesome lifestyle.
I mean, I've spent a lot of time, particularly in the last few years, in Boulder, which is kind of its own place. The People's Republic of Boulder. It's so left field. It's socially so different to anywhere almost that I've ever been in the US. It's so left. It's so, I mean, the Democrats are like fascists compared to the politics of most people in Boulder. And that's even more expensive than Denver. But I mean, I think to me, living somewhere near Denver, but maybe not in it, would be the most viable option.
Well, and Boulder was smart because they passed a lot of local ordinances that you can't build. So you don't go to Boulder and see massive condos on every street, and so it's kept a lot of the charm that Boulder's always had. Where Denver's lost some of that. Because another thing that I just find so interesting about people is they'll be attracted to an old neighborhood. So there's some old neighborhoods in Denver that are really cool, like Wash Park, the area around University of Denver. These are just really cool neighborhoods. Cherry Creek is another one. And what happened is so many people moved in from wealthier states like California, and they're like, wow, these are amazing little neighborhoods with all these cool little shops and these little houses. But I don't really want to live in one of these little houses that don't have many closets, and they don't have all this stuff in a big giant kitchen and stuff. So I'll just tear it down and build something else. And now you have entire neighborhoods that have just been destroyed. If you go to Cherry Creek, you'd be lucky to find half a dozen original houses in that entire area. They're all gone. And not that it's not a cool neighborhood, because it is a cool neighborhood, but the original charm is completely been lost. Boulder was smarter and didn't really let that happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can be 100 meters off Pearl Street, the Pearl Street Mall, which runs through the middle of Boulder, and there are these old colonial style wooden houses, and it's great. But no, I mean, I remember coming to see you I don't remember the timeline. And there was some cool, it might trigger you, but there was some cool kind of circular house raised up.
Oh,
yeah, and
yes.
you pointed it out, and then I came back whenever it was, a year or two later, and some complete douchebag had torn down one of the most unusual, original, interesting houses in the world and just put some glass monstrosity where it used to be. And I was so offended that you could put, why? They just put if you want some big, massive modern house, go live way out in the suburbs. Don't ruin some classic house in a downtown area. That is just one of my biggest pet peeves. And I've always said, if I had a fortune, I won Powerball, or I did something where I had a fortune, I would start a charity where I would try to save old buildings. Because it just drives me absolutely crazy. And in Denver, that's happened, where there's, and especially in a place where Denver is not that old. I mean, we're 1860s or something. I don't even know what the oldest house in Denver is. It's probably late 1800s. So the little bit of history we have here, to tear it down is absolutely ridiculous. It's terrible, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. My geography and my history is probably failing me here, but when Jefferson completed the Louisiana Purchase in 1812, I guess Denver didn't even exist, and I guess Denver would have been in what was then Louisiana, because Louisiana went up all the way to Montana, basically. So it's an incredibly new city. So I agree. I mean, yeah, it offends me when you have a modern American city, and that's great, and it comes with a lot of benefits. But when it has some old, beautiful houses and they get torn down and get replaced with yet another glass and black metal box, it's incredibly annoying. But no, But Denver, I think, in places, you might correct me, it feels like it still retains small town charm. Might be a bit strong, but it doesn't. It doesn't feel like a metropolis.
Well, Denver is very neighborhood centric. Some of the suburbs aren't, but if you live in Denver proper, which I do, people will say what neighborhood they live in. That's like a big deal. And if you have a Denver zip code, your property's generally worth a lot more than if it doesn't have a Denver zip code. Even though there's outlying suburbs, towns, there's a lot of them, and some are considered higher level than others. Based on the different houses in them. But there's a lot of pride to having a house actually in Denver, because Denver's landlocked around all these different suburbs.
And I feel like, having said Denver's great, we then focus on the negatives, but what do you, we've already talked about the climate, the sport and stuff. What is it that has kept you in Denver for your whole life?
Well, I mean, the main thing is family.
Yeah.
But I do like Denver, and even without family, would I leave Denver?
I feel like you would stay there anyway.
I would think I would stay. I would have probably a vacation home and leave in January or February and come back. But the summers here are just absolutely beautiful, and I have land up in the mountains. I have a lot of ties here. I went to college for undergrad and graduate school in Colorado, and there really are some really cool things in Denver. I think the Natural History Museum is great. The zoo is a really good zoo. There's some really cool stuff downtown with the 16th Street Mall. We don't have the best shopping in the world by any means. Denver's not a shopper's paradise, and it's not a fashionista town. It's more North Face and Patagonia type clothes than high fashion. We've got a lot of really good dining. It's just like I said, it's just expensive to go out and eat here. The bar scene's probably pretty good, but the bars that I frequented when I was young are gone. They just got priced out basically and either torn down or taken over. But I grew up punk rock in the area, so there was a punk bar called Three Kings that's long gone. There's another bar called Streets of London, which you appreciate, which is long gone. But I think Denver has a really good park system. It's got a lot of open space. You can get on trails, and when you came last time, even from my house, we went on a really long walk just through some open space, and you kind of saw that, and you don't really get that in a lot of cities. But if you look at a map of Denver, there's a lot of green space within the city.
Yeah, it's super appealing. And in terms of if people were going to visit Denver, because the green space is one of those things where you just find the green space near your house and enjoy it. But if people were going to visit Denver, what would you say is the quintessential Denver experience, the things you wouldn't want to miss?
That's a really good question, because it's just kind of like everywhere. Like if you're from Denver or you live in Denver, you probably don't go downtown a lot. You kind of stay in other places, and even when you came down, like we didn't go like downtown Denver much. We stayed in Denver, but a little bit outside of the downtown where there's some really cool areas. It's kind of like, I feel like people that live in Vegas probably don't go to the Strip every day. So when people come to Denver, they're gonna probably want to see Union Station, which is an old train station that's been converted into shops and restaurants. Or want to see the 16th Street Mall, which is in downtown Denver, which is a pedestrian only mall that you can walk. Well, it's got like little tram things, but you can't drive on it. Sporting events, I think, are a big deal. I'm a big museum person, and zoo person, so I would recommend both those museums. We've got a really good art museum too. And then I'd probably try to get out of Denver and go see some other stuff in Colorado. I think a few days in Denver you can really see a lot. There's some kind of some other stuff that I would recommend. One the Molly Brown house. Molly Brown was a socialite in Denver that survived the Titanic, and she's played by Kathy Bates in the Titanic movie, and she's a super interesting lady that was way ahead of her time for being kind of an opinionated lady that was not kind of the wallflower you think of as women from that era, and when the Titanic sank, she saved a lot of people, and there was a musical about her in the 50s called The Unsinkable Molly Brown. But her house is in Denver. You can go tour it. I think that's a really cool kind of quintessential Denver thing. You can get right out of Denver, go to the Golden, go to Golden, and go to the Coors Brewery, which is also very quintessential Colorado. The concert venues that, like you were talking about, Red Rocks in Morrison a lot of people consider it to be the greatest concert venue in the world, or at least in the top few. We went there, if you remember, and not for a concert, but we went there and walked around, and then went and had hot wings.
It was amazing. I mean, I was about to say, if you don't say Red Rocks, I'm going to say it, because
Yeah,
if it's almost hard to name a band that hasn't played there. U2 recorded what was it called, the live album, Under a Blood Red Sky.
Red Sky there. Yeah,
that was
yeah.
at Red Rock. But if you could think of a band from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones,
Beatles played there.
Foo
Yeah.
Fighters,
I saw
anyone.
Oasis there.
Yeah, Oasis. Yeah, I mean, if you can think of a band, they played Red Rocks, and it's
Yeah.
an amazing amphitheater.
Yeah, I've been there dozens and dozens of times. I've seen tons of bands there. If you're not familiar with it, I would recommend to Google it. It's built out of natural rock formations, and it was built in the 20s during the Depression, when Roosevelt was trying to put Americans to work to build infrastructure and big projects, and it was built under that. And it's just an amazing, amazing concert venue. And even if there's not a concert going on, you can still drive up there and walk around during the day, because people go, like fitness people go and they run up and down the stairs and stuff, and you can go watch them do that and be glad that it's not you.
Fitness people. Yeah, what else? And I mean, I remember in terms of food, because I think you and I are both of the opinion that food is a huge part of travel.
Yeah.
You and I went for Colorado oysters.
Yes, Rocky Mountain Oysters.
Mountain Oysters.
Buckhorn Exchange is an old restaurant in Denver that's still there, and it's actually Denver liquor license number 1. It's been there since the 1800s, and you go in and it's got all these old animals, like taxidermy stuffed animals on the walls, and it's a really neat place. All these old presidents ate there. And Rocky Mountain Oysters are not regular oysters. They're strips of bull testicles that are fried. It's one of the things, nobody really eats them. Like, it's not like a local thing that we all eat Rocky Mountain Oysters. I think ranchers probably ate them at some point, but it's a very famous Denver thing, and that's kind of the place to go do it. So you go there to Buckhorn Exchange, and you get Rocky Mountain Oysters, and you're like, oh, I feel like I have to eat these to get my money, because they're, but I really don't want to eat anymore.
I remember they were pretty good. I don't remember it being awful.
I think anything fried that you can with a dipping sauce is usually pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to switch your brain off to what it actually is.
Yes, and steaks are big here. I don't think it's quite as big as when I was a kid. When I was a kid, Denver was very much like cattle country and beef country. There's still some of that, but I don't feel like it's quite the same. It's branched out. It's so strange how things happen. When I was growing up, there was like one Chinese restaurant in my side of town. The only Mexican restaurant was in Parker, which is a whole nother town over. And now it's like I could walk to 10 Mexican restaurants from my house. There's Chinese stuff everywhere. Like, it's amazing how it's grown in just size and amounts of things to do. It was there was not just that much to do. It was very, very sleepy. When I was a punk rock teenager and growing up in Denver, and we would drive downtown to go to this coffee shop called Paris on the Plot, and or we'd go to Mercury Cafe to watch a concert. You might pass one or two cars on the highway coming home, going in the opposite direction, and maybe not see another one going in the same direction as you. And it is just amazing how much it's changed. Just absolutely amazing.
How's the demographics changed? Because I'd imagine back when you were growing up, Denver was pretty white, not particularly diverse. Or am I wrong?
It was. I would say in my high school, it was mostly white, almost no Hispanics. I'd say a decent amount of African Americans and some Asians. And now I would say my high school that I went to is probably, I don't know, well over half Hispanic.
Yeah, it seems like there's a huge Hispanic population in Denver now.
Yeah.
So that's a new development.
Yeah, that's I would say we've always had some, and it used to be more neighborhood centric too. So you had, there's black areas, that there were Hispanic areas, there was a neighborhood that was like Polish, there's Jewish neighborhood. Now it's been kind of mixed up, and you still have some kind of enclaves of some different groups that tend to live in different areas. There's some Korean kind of areas and things like that, but I think it has become more diverse. So I would say that part is a positive. It's just the amount of people that have come in is not the positive.
It's the volume rather than who's coming.
It's the volume rather than who's coming. Other than I think a lot of homeless have come here. And then a lot of wealthy people from California, Oregon, Washington State came here and then tried to make it more like, it's like, I don't like California because of blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go to Denver and turn it into California.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of stuff. I think I wish hadn't happened, or they were more sensitive to that stuff. But I don't know. It's interesting because, I love the city, but I still love it, but I'm cognizant that I'm turning into an old curmudgeon that that looks at the old days with a lot of fondness. And I'm sure people, when I got here, were looking and complaining about the people that came here at that time and were like, in the 50s, Denver was so much better. And then the people before that were in the 1920s, it was so much better. And I'm sure 25 years from now, there'll be somebody doing a podcast saying, when I grew up in Denver in 2025, it was so awesome. And now it's terrible.
Yeah.
So
I suspect that is more you becoming an old curmudgeon than Denver changing. I mean, to me, I think often things look better in the rearview mirror. I totally get what you're saying, but as someone that got to know Denver in the last 10 years, I think 2016 was the first time I went there, so relatively recent. I think it's a pretty great place, and I would thoroughly recommend to anyone who likes sport, music, culture, food, mountains, cities. If you like life, I feel like you'll enjoy Denver.
Yeah, and I think if you're a big traveler, Denver's a must to come visit. Part of the reason we get such awesome concerts is because we're right in the middle of the country, and we're the kind of big city. So everyone stops over here because it's like, let's say you're Taylor Swift and you're going from LA to Chicago or New York. You really have to go through Denver to get there.
You might as well play a show.
So you're like, yeah, we might as well just stop in Denver and play a show. So we do get amazing bands, and I'm always shocked when there's a big tour and they're not in Denver, and I'm just like, God, it seems like they must have gone out of their way to try to not come here because it's easier just to come here.
Yeah, 100%. And we live in Kelowna in the Okanagan Valley. Basically, I'll go and watch anyone if they play Kelowna. And you know what? We've had some we've had some pretty good bands coming through in the last few years, I gotta say. But
I
yeah,
remember that.
I
You told
look
me
at
that, yeah.
I look at who's playing Denver, and I think I would spend a lot of money
Yeah.
on concerts. But I mean, even coming up, we've got some good bands. I'm going to see Bush in April.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I used to love Bush in the 90s.
Dude, you don't love Bush anymore?
I suddenly realised how that sounded. They must be so sick of all those.
That's their fault for picking the name.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
no, we get some good bands, and I'm looking for. And we've just trying to think. We had Brian Adams. We've seen a couple of times, and we kind of get that B list of not quite the top people of the Taylor Swifts and U2s. We kind of get the next tier down. We get Bush and Brian Adams, but yeah, Denver, you get everybody.
We do, and so you would ask kind of things I would do. A couple of tips that I would give is the Denver International Airport is massive. It's one of the biggest airports in the world. It is not it's not super close to Denver. It's actually out kind of this land swap with Aurora, so it's pretty far out. There is light rail that goes into town, or you can take buses and things like that. If I was coming to Denver and have never been here and was coming for a few days, if I wasn't going to go anywhere else and I was just going to come to Denver, I would fly into DIA and I'd probably take light rail downtown to a downtown hotel. I don't think I would try to rent a car if I'm staying downtown. There's just not great parking. It's just going to be a big nightmare. And then kind of hang out in the downtown area. Go to Union Station. Try to go to a sport thing if you can, even if it's one of the sports that I'm not quite excited about, like baseball is still fun. Walk around, maybe hit a museum or two, and have a steak, have some good food, and call it good. That's probably how I would recommend somebody do it. If you have more time, I would do Denver for a few days and then head up to the mountains or head to someplace else in Colorado to get some more of the Colorado experience. But that I think that's probably how I do it. I would not in DIA too. The rental car situation isn't awesome. There's no like rental car lot like in the terminal like there are at a lot of airports. So you've got to take a shuttle bus way out to get a rental car. It's just a big nightmare. And then traffic's terrible, and then parking's horrible downtown. I probably would not rent a car.
Yeah,
unless you're gonna head out.
I've rented a car a few times there, and it is a pain. You got to get the bus out.
Yeah.
And then you got to it is a pain. But generally, I'm working in Boulder, Longmont, North, so
then you've got to
have a car. But yeah. But it's a great city, and I've been very lucky that life, by pure coincidence, took me there in a previous job, and now it's taking me there in my current job. So hopefully I'll be there at least once this year. So maybe me and you can do a podcast in person with some Colorado oysters and a bottle of Coors, and
that would be super fun. There is some really great food and some really fun stuff to do.
And I will totally coincide a work trip if you can get some Broncos tickets.
I get half of them.
All right. Well, if you,
I get half the games.
I will just fudge my work schedule to make sure that I'm there for a week. If you can get a Broncos ticket, because that's
okay.
on my sporting bucket list. I've been to an NFL game, two NFL games in Seattle, but never been to a Broncos game. So.
Well, I'll know the schedule more, and I will let you know which games I have tickets to, and we can figure it out.
Oh, good! You're getting me excited now.
Yeah, and they're good tickets too. They're right in the 50-yard line. Yeah, they're really good tickets.
Oh, don't, because when I gone to the Seahawks, I buy my own tickets, and obviously to get anywhere near that is so expensive. So I'm so far back that you look and you go, oh yeah, they are playing. Yeah, I see. There's a game, but
yeah, I think probably the most Denver thing you can probably do is go to a Bronco game. It is so much energy, and they're such true fans, and it's such an old team, and fans that have been through such ups and downs, and it's just there's other teams I'm sure that are similar to that, but Denver is a really big. It's a really rabid fan base, so they're super fun. The games are so fun.
All right. Well, if I'm down and we can get some tickets, we'll do a live podcast and we'll tailgate all day, and we'll probably get completely hammered and lose the recordings from all the podcasts and
that sounds super
get
fun.
mugged and take the microphones off us. But I won't care because we'll have a great day. So yeah, we'll have to do it. It'd be super fun. Hey, thanks. That was fun. It's a place I enjoy, but obviously you know it as well as anyone, and that was fun.
Yeah, please come visit and don't stay.
Well, your cat nearly kicked the door down last time.
You missed Domino, my big old cat.
I was staying in your spare room, and he's used to sleeping in there. And about 3:00 in the morning, he started trying to kick the door down. He's a big old cat, so yeah.
He's a big boy. He's got to be close to 20 pounds. Like, yeah.
I'll just let him in next time. I was trying to resist the domino effect, but this time I'll just give in to it.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, and shotgun you driving, by the way.
Oh well, yes.
Maybe we'll get an Uber.
I have a whole system of where to park and taking light rail to the stadium, and I have a whole system to do it.
As long as I don't have to drive and I can indulge myself, then I'm all good.
Yeah, we can easily figure that out without driving.
All right, well, we'll do it. It's a date.
Sounds good.